it's Mr. A again, and I'm here to bring to you the second video having to do with theater history. Today we're going to take care of the other half of the Greeks, which means I'm going to give you 3 more ancient playwrights from over 2,000 years ago, each one with a play that they wrote that I'm going to give you a description of. And I will include links in the description down below to some stuff that you can use to be able to enrich yourself, depending on how much you want to go into this. There's a lot to know. It's a rich area of study. So let's go ahead and get started. If you haven't got your theater history PowerPoint opened up, I recommend that you do. We're going to be on the page that starts with Aeschylus. Yes, we're dealing with Aeschylus now. Aeschylus was the oldest of the 4 writers we're talking about. He was on the neighborhood of like the grandfather of all the rest of them. So like they might have known each other, but only when he was very old and they were very young. But in any case, he was considered this great master of the past. He had come up with a lot of innovations that other people hadn't done before. And the play that I want you to know about that he wrote is called the Orestia. Now, technically speaking though, the Orestia is not a play. The Orestia is actually the only complete Greek trilogy we have. That's right, it's a trilogy. It's 3 plays. You see, most of the plays in the Greek world were probably written in trilogies. The way that the contest worked is that one writer was supposed to write 3 different plays to be performed all on the same day. I suppose that was so that they get a sense of how good the writer was, instead of like, well, this was a particularly bad play, but his other plays were really good, or something like that. I'm not sure. But in any case, they did have them written in trilogies. Oedipus the King was probably part of a trilogy, but we have not got the other plays for it. The Orestia is the only one that we have all 3 for. And it's a story about a really screwed up family. Again, ordinarily at this point, I would bring some of you up on stage and we'd be acting it out. But since we can't do that, I'm going to use some figures that I've got of another screwed up family. Let's take a look down here. Okay, so the first play in the Orestia is called Agamemnon. It's named after a guy named Agamemnon who was a king and a general. And in fact, he'd been away from home for about 10 years at the Trojan War. And while he was gone, his wife, Clytemnestra, has been taking care of the kingdom for him. And during the 10 years he's gone, Clytemnestra has basically decided she doesn't like him anymore. She's had a lot of very good reasons. He did a lot of bad things. I don't want to get into it very much, but she's got reasons why. But she's been ruling for about 10 years, and before he comes back, when they know he's on his way, she talks to the elders of the city, and she says, well, when Agamemnon comes back, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill him, and I'm going to destroy him, and then I will be the king. How do you think of that? Well, that'd be great. And now these elders actually don't like this idea. Because, well, for 2 reasons. First of all, the idea of killing a king is bad anyway. And secondly, we're living in ancient Greece where they had a kind of sexist view of who ought to rule. And the idea of a woman being in charge and ruling was kind of twisted and wrong, and they didn't think it should be. But these guys all don't like this idea, but they don't want to be the one to say so. Because if they tell her, we're against you on this, she could have them killed, or whatever. If they told Agamemnon, hey, your wife's trying to kill you, he might not believe them, and then she might say, I didn't do any such thing, and then punish them. So they all want for Agamemnon to be told about this, so it'll be safe, but everybody wants somebody else to do it. So it ends up that none of them do. So Agamemnon comes in and says, behold, I am back from the war. And Clytemnestra pretends to love him. Oh, I'm so glad to have you back. I've missed you so. Oh, why don't you go inside and have some dinner and I will feed you. And the elders of the city are kind of like, yeah, welcome back. Are you sure you're ready to eat dinner? Should you maybe... They're kind of, again, all trying to get someone else to tell him, don't go back there. But because they're all waiting for somebody else to do it, he does go ahead and go back there. And Clytemnestra says, now I shall do what I said I was going to do. She goes back, and they have this little scene with like, you should have said something. No, we can still say something to stop this. But because none of them want to be the one to do it, eventually Clytemnestra comes back and says, it is done! I have killed him, and now I will be your queen! Hooray! And the other guys are all like, yay! what are they going to do now? Now this, by the way, is a very quick version of this story. It's actually a play that takes about an hour to show, and I'm giving you a very quick rundown. But anyway, that's the end of the first play. Agamemnon is dead, and now we've got Clytemnestra ruling the city, and a lot of people unhappy about it. And then we come into the second play of the story, and here we find the main character of the whole story, and his name is Orestes. Now Orestes has a bit of a problem. You see, he is the son of Agamemnon and Clytemnestra. So his mom has killed his dad. Now the problem is, according to Greek culture, religion, and tradition, if I'm a son and my father has been murdered, I must get revenge. It's not like in some places around the world today where it's like, it's okay if I do, you're excused with it. No, it's different. I have to. If I don't at least try to get revenge for a murdered father, his soul will cry to Hades. Hades will send the Furies, and the Furies will come and chase me across the land and drive me down into Hades and into hell, basically. That will happen if a son refuses to avenge his murdered father. But the same culture, religion, and tradition says that a son can never lift his hand against his mother. His mother is holy. If he even says bad things about her, she could call to Hera, the goddess of marriage and family life. Hera will send the Furies, and the Furies will drive him across the land and down into the underworld and hell. So you see Orestes' problem. He is literally damned if he does, and damned if he doesn't get revenge. So he's not sure exactly what to do, and that's where he's where the story kind of happens. The Greeks love this kind of thing, by the way. This is called a dilemma. A dilemma is a situation in which there is no perfect answer. There's no way to say this is the right thing to do and we should do this. Instead, you're kind of not sure what the right thing to do is. And the Greeks loved that kind of thing because it let them say that you're not really in charge of your life. The gods rule your fate. You can do whatever you want to try, but at the end of the day, Orestes, you're going to be chased by Furies. It's just going to happen. So they liked that. So Orestes, though, he's not sure what to do. And as he's trying to figure it out, his sister comes along, Electra. Now, Electra is quite sure what to do. And she's saying, no, you need to kill our mom. Our mom killed her dad. That is the right thing to do. And Orestes is like, I don't know if that's what I should do or what I shouldn't do. He said, no, you've got to do it. He says, I guess maybe I will. Eventually, he decides that is what he has to do. And so he goes to the kingdom. He takes out their mom and says he's going to kill her. The deaths don't happen on stage. Most Greek drama, deaths did not happen on stage. That comes up a little bit later when we get into the Romans. I'll talk about that's one major difference between the Greeks and the Romans. But anyway, he goes and he kills his mom to get revenge for her killing their dad. And then, no surprise at all, the Furies arise. Only Orestes can see them. Everyone else kind of thinks he might be a little crazy, but the reason they do that is because we only have one chorus, and the chorus was not Furies in this one. So the Furies show up, and they chase him off, and he runs off the stage, and that's the end of the second play, The Libation Bearers. Now we come to the third play. Now the third play begins in a whole different place. This is in Athens. Orestes has come to Athens and he's thrown himself on the altar of Athena. And all around him are these Furies. And they're waiting for him to let go of this altar so they can rip him apart. In the ancient world, if you were touching an altar, it was like the safe place in a game of tag. You weren't allowed to be hurt. And the reason was, you're depending on this god to protect you. And the Furies weren't going to mess with this god Athena, and so they had to wait to see have him let go so that they could attack him. Of course, now Orestes needs to explain himself, though, to the god. So along comes the goddess Athena, and the goddess Athena comes down and says, hey, what are you doing on my altar, boy? And Orestes says, Athena, I don't know if I did the right thing. Maybe I was wrong. I don't know. I did the best I knew how, but if I'm wrong, tell me so, and I'll let the Furies take me away. But you've got to judge, did I do the right thing or not? And Athena basically then calls together basically a trial. This is the beginnings of Athenian, the Athenian justice system. So the whole point of the Orestia is to show the mythological beginnings of the Athenian justice system. And Athena makes a big trial, calls in people to and experts and stuff, and eventually comes down to this: is I believe Orestes did the right thing because his duty, he had a duty to his father and a duty to his mother. But your duty to your father is more important than your duty to your mother. Now, make of that what you want to. Greek society was a bit racist, sexist, I should say, and but that is what she says. I believe he did the right thing. So his Furies, leave him alone. And the Furies are upset about this, but they leave him alone, and Orestes is able to leave and get away. And then she tells the Furies, why don't you change and instead defend people that have done the good things and only punish people that have done bad things. And they agree to do that, and that's the end of the story. Pretty screwed up, huh? So let's go on to the next guy. The next guy's name is Euripides. Now, of all the people we're going to talk about, Euripides was the most progressive for his time. Now, I say for his time because today we probably wouldn't consider him to be very progressive, but in the time he wrote, ancient Greece was very much about their traditions, and people weren't supposed to break their traditions. In fact, a lot of the times, the theater was intended to be a place to establish and reinforce those same traditions. Traditions about following the gods and obeying their cultural icons, and especially being proud to be a Greek. And Euripides tended to try to question all those things. He tended to make plays about characters that were not supposed to be people that the Greeks would care about. For example, he's well known to have made a play called The Trojan Women, which was about the story of the battle, the Trojan War, basically, except from the point of view of the women in Troy. Now, first of all, you're not supposed to be on Troy's side anyway, you're supposed to be on the Greek side. But secondly, he's looking at the women who had nothing to do with the war at all, but were punished and were made into victims. He did that sort of thing all the time. He'd like to make his audience question, are you sure that you're on the right side in this? And the play that he wrote that I want you to know about is called Medea. Now, if you're going to see a play called Medea and you're an ancient Greek, you already know what that is. So you think you already know that story and you know who the heroes are going to be and who the villains are going to be. But this is Euripides. So be prepared for a switch. But of course, first thing we got to do is you've got to be able to explain, to know what's going on in the actual myth in order to see what Euripides did for it. So let's take a look again at our action figures and see what that myth was. So the myth of Medea begins with a character named Jason. Now, Jason was considered this great, wonderful hero of Greece. He did all sorts of legendary things, and one thing he was known to have done was to go out and get something called the Golden Fleece. So he was given this task to go out and get this Golden Fleece, but he couldn't get it. And the reason he couldn't is because there was a king that was a sorcerer, he had an army, he had a dragon, he had all this stuff in the way, and Jason just couldn't get there. Until another character shows up. This character's name is Medea. Medea is the daughter of this sorcerer king, and she's got a whole lot of magical powers herself. She's kind of half witch and half goddess. So she's very, very powerful, and she sees Jason and falls in love with him. And she makes this deal, she says, I will help you to get the Golden Fleece and to get away with it if you will take me back with you and marry me. Now, Jason, having no other idea what to do, and feeling like Medea is probably a good-looking person and a good ally, he agrees to this. And so they're able to do this. She uses her magical powers to get rid of the dragon, to get rid of the armies and stuff like that, get the Golden Fleece, and to get away. And so it works. But along the way, you get an idea of the kind of person that Medea is. And she's not entirely a good guy. So, like, for example, as they're leaving, and they're in a boat, and they're heading away with the Golden Fleece, and her father is chasing them on his boat, and she's like, well, we gotta stop him in some way. How can we slow him down? I know what to do. She takes her little brother, cuts him up into little pieces, and throws him on the side of the boat. Why? Well, because she knows that her father is going to stop to give his son a decent burial, and that gives them a chance to get away. Now, this shows you the kind of person that Medea was. First of all, she was very smart and very resourceful and very powerful, but whoa, is she vicious. The idea of killing her brother, not because her brother even did anything wrong, but just because it was convenient for her, gives you an idea of the kind of person that this person was. And Jason, over time, starts to feel like, okay, I'm glad she's on my side, but she's a bit scary. When they get home, there's another guy that's trying to take away Jason's property, and rather than just like putting a spell on him to kill him, she puts her spell on him to kill him, cuts him up into little pieces, puts him into a soup, and makes his children eat him. So yeah, a little over the top, right? But in any case, Jason has promised to marry her, so he marries her, and they have 2 children. So now you got this little family, and a lot of people in the town are kind of scared of this woman because she's scary and she's powerful. And over time, eventually, Jason starts deciding, you know what, this person's actually not good for me. I need to get away from this person. So he decides he's going to leave Medea, and he's going to go and marry this princess, who's the princess that of the king of the place that they're living. That way, he will be a prince, and he will have a kingdom to inherit, and also he'll be able to get away from Medea because Medea is kind of scary. Now, Medea is obviously very, very upset about this, and she decides she's going to get vengeance. First thing she does is she creates this dress, puts poison on it, and sends it to his new bride. Ladies, if you ever marry a guy who has a crazy ex-wife and she sends you a present, go ahead and don't put it on. At least without checking first or something. She doesn't check first though. She puts on the thing and it's laced with poison and her skin melts. And so she's dead. Now, Jason is of course upset about this. All the people are upset about this. He comes back to try to stop her. In the meantime, Medea has decided, okay, now I've gotten vengeance on that woman, but now I need to get vengeance on Jason. I'm not going to kill him. That would be too good for him. I got to take away the thing he loves more than anything else in the world. What would that be? Oh, right, his children, which are also her children. So, Jason comes in, she kills their children in front of him. And then she gets away with it. She gets into this chariot being pulled by flying dragons and goes off into the sunset and lives to be the villain in a bunch of other Greek mythologies. So this is this horrifying, awful monster. And everybody going into this Greek play called Medea probably is expecting that here's our hero, here is the villain, and it's all about like the tragic story of Jason losing things. But this is Euripides, and he doesn't quite do it that way. Instead, what he does is he asks us, what exactly did Jason expect this woman to do? He knew who she was. He knew that she was vicious and that she was powerful. Did he really think that she was just going to take that lying down? Jason's a fool. And even if he did think that, what a horrible thing to think. Here's a woman that has given her whole life. She has sacrificed her family, sacrificed her homeland to go and be with him. And then he's just going to kick her aside? She can't go home. She's betrayed home. She has nowhere to go. So Jason is not only foolish to think that Medea is going to take this lying down, but also cruel to believe that she would just do whatever he told her to do and just go off and die somewhere. So Euripides takes the view that, you know what? Jason's the villain. Medea, yeah, she probably went too far. She probably shouldn't have killed their children. But you know what? We kind of can excuse her that because Jason backed her into a corner that she couldn't get out of. There's another side to this, too, when you look at Euripides' play. Remember, this is an all-male cast and an all-male audience. It's not like there's a bunch of women in the audience saying, yeah, you go, Medea. Yeah, you show that man who's boss. No, these are other guys. So this is a man sending a message to other men saying, you know what? If your wife is mean and horrible, it's your fault. You're the one with the power in our society. You have the strength to be able to make changes. She doesn't. If she's horrible, it is your fault. So yeah, Medea was not a very popular play. It did not win the contest that year, but it has been done over and over again since then, especially in our modern day. This play I saw done in the METG finals. So just recently, just a couple of years ago, because it's still compelling. The idea that of a woman with no other choice. And does she do the right thing? Does she do the wrong thing? But at least she acts. It's a powerful play, and it's still considered a very important play even today. Okay, so let's take it to the last guy then. The last guy I want you to know about is named Aristophanes. Now, Aristophanes is the only Greek comedy writer that we still have the plays from. Now, comedy is very different than tragedy. Like I said in the last video, first of all, comedy wasn't considered to be as important. Because they were still intended to teach you things, but it was intended to teach you more worldly things having to do with our current life instead of how to better serve the gods and all that kind of thing. So it wasn't considered to be as important. The other thing to understand about comedy is that comedy has a bit of a shelf life. Things that are funny now won't be funny in another 20 or 30 years, never mind in 2,000 years or more. So a lot of Aristophanes' plays are funny, but only if you kind of are able to do the research first and understand what's going on. But there's a couple of his plays and some parts of the plays that still end up being funny even anyway, and one of them is a play that is called the Lysistrata. Or some people pronounce it the Lysistrata, or some other pronunciations, and that's alright. It doesn't matter to me. The Lysistrata. Now, the main character of Lysistrata is this woman, whose name is Lysistrata. Oh, but before I tell you about that, I need to tell you something about what happened when it was written. So when Aristophanes wrote this, his country, Athens, was in the middle of a war. They were in a war with Sparta, and they'd been at war for many years. In so many years, in fact, that everyone was sick of this war. They wanted the war to be over. The Athenians were sick of it, and the Spartans were sick of it. But they couldn't find a way to end it that made everybody happy and that didn't make it look like they had lost. And so the war just kept on going, even though everyone wanted it to end. And so Aristophanes writes this play about this woman named Lysistrata, who is also living in a time when there's a big war with Sparta, coincidentally enough. Now, Lysistrata, though, her main issue isn't keeping her honor. Her main issue is she misses her man. And I can never remember if it's a boyfriend or a husband, but in any case, she's got a man. And her man is away at the war all the time, and she misses him and wants him back. And by the way, Aristophanes makes no secret about it. When I say she misses him, she wants him back in her bed. She is lonely, she is horny, and she misses her man. Okay? So she comes up with a plan to be able to end the war so that she can get her man back. So she calls all the women of Athens and says, I've got a plan to end this war as long as you guys will all help me out. And the women are like, well, sure, we'd love to. We want to end the war too. We also miss our husbands and boyfriends. And she says, well, it's not enough to have you guys. I need all the women of Sparta. They got to be on our side too. So the women of both of these warring countries, they get together to Lysistrata's house. And Lysistrata, they're all curious. What is Lysistrata's plan to end this war? And so Lysistrata gets them all together and says, all right, ladies, this is how we're going to end the war. I need every woman here to make a solemn oath to the gods that you will not have sex with anyone until the war's over. And the women are all like, no, we can't swear to that. We're lonely enough. We're not going to have no sex even when our husbands come home. And Lysistrata says, no, I swear, I promise you, by the gods, if we do this, the war will end. But we need to all be unified in this. And they take a little bit of convincing, but eventually they do agree to do this. And they not only just like decide not to have sex, they also need to be teasy. Today we would say that they run around in lingerie all the time. Of course, this is 2,000 years ago. They had a different set of how they teased people. But in any case, they don't just say we're not having sex. They also say, oh, you want some of this, do you? Well, is the war over yet? No, we can't have anything till the war's over. So they're trying to tease their men into doing this. And it works. It's a kind of a long story. I don't want to get too much into it. It is funny, but it works. It actually takes only a couple of days, and then the people of both sides come to her and beg her to end this strike, and she says, only if you end the war, and so they end the war. And so it's very, very funny. It's especially funny when you stop and think about it and realize, again, there are no women on the stage. These are guys pretending to be women. So that's even funnier. But if you look at it really deeply, you'll see that he's actually saying something kind of profound. These men of Athens, they had no idea how to end this war. And yet, he's saying the women could do it. The women could do it. If they just got together and said they were going to do this, we would end the war tomorrow. So, suggesting that women are either stronger than they or we believe them to be. But that said, it's not like it's really making a whole big point anyway. The main point of it is that it's very silly and it's a very funny play. And it's one of these plays that, like I said, a lot of plays, a lot of comedies especially, don't seem to translate very well. This one does. In fact, it translates so well, there was a remake of this in the modern day called Lysistrata Jones. It was on Broadway for a couple of weeks. It didn't do terrifically well, and I will tell you, I've read this play. I haven't seen this play, but I did read it. It's not excellent. It's pretty good though. And I love the fact that it exists. I love the fact that somebody said, let's take this ancient Greek play and put it in modern days. It's not a war, instead it's a basketball game. They've got a basketball team that can't win. And so Lysistrata Jones makes all the women in the college swear to not have sex with anybody until the team starts winning games. And it works. So it's a really funny play. I think I will put a link to some Lysistrata Jones stuff in there. But I will tell you this. I'm going to leave you a link to Medea and to the Orestia, including whole versions of the play if you want to, but I'm not giving one to Lysistrata. Sorry guys, it's a dirty play. Okay, as a high school teacher, I really can't give you a link. If you want to look it up yourself, go knock yourselves out. Go ahead. I can't stop you from doing that, but be warned, it is a little risque. In any case, though, that's the end of the Greeks. Tomorrow, or I shouldn't say tomorrow, the next time that we get together, I will give you another video where we'll go through the Romans. And you'll see that the Romans had a very different view of theater, and as a result, they made some very different kinds of plays. In the meantime, stay safe, keep enriching yourselves through theater, and have a great day.